Okay. So I was in bed and I've been trying to go to sleep. Mm-mm. Now, I know the reason I couldn't sleep because I know God had been talking to me and He had told me something He wanted me to say. And of course, I didn't want to do it. So it's been being pressed upon me to give this message. And I said, okay, how about this when you start bargaining with God? How about I do the message tomorrow for real? I know it's been a few weeks, okay, months, and I know I keep putting it off. So just one more night, right? And no. So I said, listen, tell me what you want me to do. You gonna let me go to sleep and get up tomorrow and do this message, or do I need to get up now? I didn't hear anything. So I'm thinking eventually I'm gonna be able to go to sleep. And we're gonna do this tomorrow. So you see I'm up. This is what happened. While I was trying to go to sleep, God reminded me of a few situations where He had given me a word to give to a few people. And so I got up and I wrote these notes down. This is what it says. So I was trying to go to sleep and I couldn't rest. So of course I started talking to God about the messages He had been giving me, but that I was struggling to put these messages out. If you look at the YouTube, you'll see it's been about a year. So while I was trying to bargain with Him about doing this video tomorrow, of course I couldn't sleep. So I know that's my answer. And it says, but here's the funny thing. This message is actually not about the message that God had given me recently. So it says, here's what happened. God reminded me of a few events several years ago. And then He started moving forward and He reminded me of some messages that He had given me a couple of years ago. So when I say a few years ago, I'm talking like 10 years ago. He told me to tell someone something. And I did. I was a lot more aggressive back then. So I gave the message, and then He reminded me of a message that He had given someone just a couple of years ago. And then He moved forward and He reminded me of a message that He had given just a few months ago. Okay? Then He reminded me of a message that He had me give just a couple of weeks ago to a person. And I'm like, okay. But the one that stuck out was the one that He gave me just a couple of months ago. And it was for a young lady. Well, I call her a young lady because she's much younger than me. But the message was about her conceiving a child. So I gave the lady this message, and I gave her what God had pressed upon me, which is, she's struggling to conceive. And, I didn't know what her hope was, but the message was that she was going to conceive, and she was going to conceive naturally, a natural way, You know what I'm saying? So, but what's funny is when I was laying there trying to relax and I was thinking about this young lady, I was thinking, man, if that was me, my husband wouldn't have a chance. He wouldn't. If I knew God was saying I was going to conceive, oh, that man would be in trouble. He'd be tired because he wouldn't catch a break. I want a baby. If I want a baby and God said I'm going to conceive and I'm going to conceive naturally, what that mean? Yeah, right. So I was thinking about her and I was becoming very critical. I was laughing in my head, but I was very critical about, man, if that was me. You remember that song from where it said from the window to the wall? He wouldn't have a shot. And I wouldn't stop until I conceived. So I was thinking about that. And then as I was being very critical about, you know, work would take a back seat. Everything would take a back seat because God said. So while I was laying in bed thinking about this and joking with myself about what's wrong with this woman? Why is she not being aggressive with this? And God said, well, why aren't you being aggressive with what I told you to do? And then he had the nerve, the audacity to bring up Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 through 5. Seriously? Okay, here we go. Judge not that you not be judged, for with judgment you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, you will also be measured back to you. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove this speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite. Hypocrite. Yeah, hypocrite. First, remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Okay. So, here's the thing. When you hear those scriptures or those messages talking about delayed is not denied, and sometimes God says yes, and sometimes God says no, and sometimes God says wait. We've all heard those messages. But the truth is, sometimes God has said yes, but we don't move in the direction that we're supposed to move in. And we don't move in the time that we're supposed to move in. When God tells you to do something, when he sends a word specifically and directly to you, for you, why are you waiting? Yeah, that's for me too. But why are you waiting? How many of you heard a word from God? Know God was talking to you. You know God was talking to you to do something or not to do something. So, when I say God reminded me of messages that he gave years ago, he gave me two specific people, reminded me of two specific situations where those people knew that I heard from God, but they didn't like what was being said, so they didn't move. They didn't do what he said. Okay. But when you look back over how things have turned out, can't blame God. So it was not a delayed or is not denied. It's not a God said no. It was a did you do what you were supposed to do? And then he reminded me of someone that he gave a word to, that he told me to speak to a couple of years ago. They heard it. They moved immediately. And now they are very successful. They knew and they moved and they're very successful. And then you have this lady he reminded me of a few months ago. So it's up to her. God's already said it. You're supposed to do your part, right? And then he reminded me, and I gave you a word for someone just a couple of weeks ago. You delivered it. That person moved immediately. And she has immediate results. It wasn't a delayed is not denied. It wasn't a wait. It was a God spoke. She moved. She has what God said she will have. Now, again, the reason for this message is because I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep, struggling about a message that God wants me to give. I don't want to give it. Oh, but you know it's coming, right? Oh, it's coming. Because what I won't do is lose not another night of sleep. Not one more. Because what he showed me was, he showed me before, years and years ago, one of the very first things he said to me, I didn't even realize it was him. I didn't know it was him talking to me. That's how dense I was. But I did exactly what he said, and I got immediate results. And I'm talking about the doctors had just left the room, and they told me I wasn't going nowhere for at least another couple of weeks. But God said, get up, wash your face, brush your teeth, comb your hair, go home. I thought I was talking to myself, and I was like, yeah, I repeated those words. Get up, brush my teeth, comb my hair, get dressed, and go home. And that's what I did. Immediately after the doctors had just left the room and said, you're not going nowhere for weeks. You're going to be here for a while. And I said, I can't. I have a small child. That's how long ago it was. That small child is in her 40s now. But I heard the word. I didn't realize where it was coming from, but I heard it. I moved immediately. I went to that front desk and said, how do I leave? How do I get out of here? The nurses looked at me and said, who are you? And I pointed to my room. They like, honey, you can't go anywhere. You're sick. You can't go anywhere. I said, oh no, I got to go. I got to go. She said, honey, there's not a doctor in this hospital that's going to sign you out. I said, okay. Can I sign myself out? And she said, yeah, but we can't let you walk out of here. We would have to take you down in a wheelchair. Okay, then take me down in a wheelchair. I'll just call a cab, which is what I did. And I went home. It didn't take me an hour to wash my face, brush my teeth, comb my hair, get dressed, and go home. I moved immediately on what God said. So I would advise you, when you hear a word from God, move immediately. Oh, but first, take that plank out your eye before you start trying to remove a splinter from someone else's eye. That's just me. That ain't God saying that to you. That's me saying it to you. But he said it to me, so I'm just gonna assume we can just, you understand. Right. That's it. Good night. I'm going to bed.